Welcome back to Show Studio's live Fashion Week panel discussions. We are kicking things off this season for Spring Summer 26 with Martine Rose. I'm your host, Hetty Mahlich. I'm the editor here at Show Studio, and I have a fabulous panel here with me today. Natalie Kingham, fashion and buying consultant. Kervin Marc, artist and designer. Paul Toner from Time Magazine, deputy editor, and Kay, aka DRYBABE, DJ. Thank you so much all for joining me to talk about this show. Before we get into Spring Summer 26, I want to talk a bit about Martine Rose, the brand, and Martine Rose, the designer, and I mean, I speak for myself, but why we love her so here in London. She's kind of one of our hero designers, really, of the last kind of 20 years. And one of the kind of, I mean, we're in a really tricky time with the industry right now, and she's one of the few designers who's kind of been able to stay the course and still kind of has her namesake label. Paul, I want to start with you and ask, for you, what have you kind of come to expect from a Martine Rose kind of collection from the brand?
I think from the outset, I've come to expect to sort of be challenged when I come in. Like, I think one of the main beauties of Martine shows is sort of, she's trying to sort of toy with it and sort of see how much you can get away with. Like, I think a lot of her approach to silhouettes and cut, and even sort of how the models are presented in the show, you sort of don't know how you should react to them. Like, should you find them sexy? Should you not? And I think sort of the way she's been able to sort of play with different subcultural codes, sort of taking the everyday and sort of putting in a place of fantasy, and sort of, yeah, just the way she sort of experiments is really exciting. And I think so there's always a level of humour there, a sexuality, a sensuality. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of like Martinisms that we can always expect from the shows.
Natalie, I wanted to ask you, kind of, I mean, thinking about Martine when she came onto the scene in like 2007, I feel like I kind of know this as like legend, having come into the industry kind of in the last like 6 years or so, and I've heard all the stories about her launching this shirting label and kind of coming onto the scene. But I wonder, from your perspective of having gone to those shows in that period, what it was like when Martine kind of started showing and what the impact was at the time.
Well, at the time it was mainly menswear, and I went in to buy it for ladies' wear, which was a little bit confusing for everybody, but it really worked. And then we built a relationship and started to think about how we could bring in a little bit more the cuts that would fit for the women. But what was great was the shirts and the ties and the tie pin. I do have some of those pieces still, and I love wearing them. And she was always playing with, you know, gender and subculture and streetwear, and even this show here, it's like, you know, you see these people walking around everywhere, and then she just throws it all together in such an unexpected way. She's always been champion. She's a great British talent, without a doubt, and a very unsung hero. I'm still waiting for her to fly the flag in a really big way, but she does it here like this now, and it is a big way, but I'd like her one day to be creative director somewhere.
Yeah, I would like to talk about that a bit later, about what we kind of would like.
Shake up LVMH or
yeah, because I mean, thinking about shaking up, there was no London Fashion Week this weekend, it was cancelled. It's interesting when you talk about that period of Martine coming onto the scene, because then kind of London Fashion Week men's was established. It was the menswear scene in London became this really big moment, and we're in a phase now where the community's a bit all over the place. But Martine has kind of always done things kind of her own way. Kay, when did Martine kind of come onto your radar?
I think it was actually during the lockdown show. What was it called?
Like a massive one where it went into different bedrooms?
Yeah, it was super digital, and I found myself in Italy, I found myself in Spain, I found myself in London.
Christina, that was the one which is called What We Do All Day.
Yeah.
On our website. And
I think I was familiar with Martine before that, but I'd never seen a show or ever seen it, sort of a collection come out. I'd kind of seen friends wearing some of her items and like shirts like this, which is a bit strange. But seeing that at that time, and also being in lockdown, I think it was just an incredible way to bring the digital to the real life, and you just felt like you're really peering into people's lives But I think at the same time, it was thinking about AI and like the digital space. I don't feel like we'd really been immersed into, I don't think we had ChatGPT just then, really. But that I feel like is almost like an entrance into this new artificial intelligent world that we're kind of immersed in now. So, yeah.
I loved that showcase because it was so about different people and seeing like the clothes on different people, even in a time when we couldn't meet up. And for Martine, that's so important. You know, she designs very much based on real people around her, like local heroes and things like that. Kervin, I mean, we were chatting a bit off camera before, kind of just having a little look at the clothes, and it was quite interesting chatting to you about what you kind of saw in this collection in Martine in terms of familiarities. And I guess I'd like to know, what kind of draws you to Martine's work?
So Martine, I mean, I'm personally a bit plugged out of fashion, the main fashion system, and I feel myself as a bit of an outsider. You know, I've been curated for a market store for about 18 years, so I'm just trying to be my own individual self. So I don't really like looking at other designers, and even coming to the show, it's quite difficult to say critique somebody. But having to research Martine, then I realized, oh my word, she's probably one of the best outsider designers I've ever seen, right? Simply because there are, you know, when I first heard of her many years ago, you know, I didn't really pay too much attention. I'd see the odd image, and it looked like a Columbo-wearing guy, you know, with a Mac or something. It is kind of disjointed things. But actually, having studied it, then you realize that these people are so odd. You know, these characters that she creates, that they're really, really cool. And her eye for detail is absolutely incredible, actually. And you know, as a black designer and so on, I mean, I think I come from an era where we were often dismissed, you know, as not that serious, right? And even, I mean, I grew up in Shepherd's Bush. Even our crackheads, right, would sometimes walk around amazingly curated, right? And I'm not saying these are crackheads, but, you know, in some cases they're not far from it.
But they all look like those kind of characters that you find knocking around London, don't
Yeah. And then, you know, you look at it and you can dismiss it, but then you look at the details. I mean, just from this collection alone, you know, just, you know, the sort of sky blue T-shirt with number 7 on it, and Expect Perfection. You put those together, and then immediately, I know she started in 2007, I believe, but then I immediately think of Beckham 7 and all the pressure of that. If she's talking about like the 90s and the early 2000s. So immediately, it's like, actually, this is quite an intellectual piece of work. Yeah.
I'm glad we've started like having a bit of a giggle and a laugh, because I feel like Martine is a brand that it makes you want to have a bit of a laugh, and it's a welcoming brand. I think it's not snooty in any way in that kind of fashion sense.
No, it's not snooty. It's actually very inclusive. And as I said, you know, a lot of the characters who she seems to create, they seem to be real outsiders, real weirdos, real Royal Tenenbaums type characters, who, when you actually look at them, it's like, actually, that is very cool. Yeah. I mean, I can see also the gender play, the gender fluidity. I mean, when I first started, I started making menswear because I'm 6'5", black guy, so you know you feel pushed into that. But the majority of my customers are women, and I've grown to do sort of unisex clothing, and I think that's probably the problem with menswear is in the times that we're in now, where you know there's a fluidity, right? I keep seeing these images, and I keep thinking about Prince, and you know, some of his hairstyle or older references like, say, a Little Richard or something like that, where there's a femininity, but there's a toughness as well in amongst it. So she, to me, at the minute, just looking at it, it seems to be where the conversation in so-called menswear is, because I don't even think those terms, you know, necessarily exist as much now.
Well, let's talk a bit about that influence that Martine's had. I mean, Natalie, you kind of mentioned it, that influence that she's had on menswear. I do think it's interesting the last couple of years or so, there's been so many headlines about Martine, more than kind of there was before. People are kind of giving her flowers a bit, if you will. She was at Balenciaga, consulting with Demna. She's done numerous collaborations. But I wanted to ask you guys a bit why we think that at the moment the wider industry seems to be paying Martine that attention, which we've kind of been hoping for her for so long.
Well, I think everything has got really quite dull and homogenous, and it's like she's never been dull, and everything that she shows is like, it is super cool, and like even some of the people around here have got great little shorts on, and she's got that, she references what everybody wants, and then she kind of, and wears, and then just really pushes it into a, oh my goodness, what's that? I mean, there's it bag after it bag, there's T-shirt after T-shirt, there's shorts after shorts. It's like everything could be, there's just so many big hits in there. And I think but it's all fresh. You haven't seen it before. It's not regurgitated or anything like that either. And it's all put together with the thigh-high socks. It's just like, I love that look, thigh-high socks and little shorts.
Yeah, it's so good.
And there's a lot of people that dress like that now as well, but she kind of, I don't know, she just throws it all together in a really cool way. Makes it look great.
I mean, again, Kervin and I were kind of chatting before, and I was saying about the format for this show. So it was this job centre that she'd taken over, and on the first floor they had a marketplace of lots of different sellers. So like designers like Dwara Lane, Yaz Excel, but then like antiques and artworks and magazines, but also they had the archive from Crazy Clothing Company, that vintage shop. And I was talking to the guy, Chris, about it, and he was saying how like Martine had, it was one of the places that she went, and it was interesting just going through the rails and looking at the shoes, because you could see like these faux croc big loafers, and then I thought of obviously the classic Martine loafer, and you can see, the people literally just on the rail that she's like been influenced by who she's seen or grown up with and stuff. But Kay and Paul, you were both at the show as well. What did you think of that setup of having the marketplace?
I thought it was like amazing, and I think sort of with Martine, even though her name is above the door, it's never, she's the first person to speak, it's not sort of about me, and she sort of has brought up everyone with her, like from her styling team to the hair to the design team to her collaborators. She's always uplifting the people that are around her, as well as sort of the people she sees in the street who sort of influence the collections as well. And I think this was just such a brilliant example of it, of sort of the network that she values, and you can tell she really values London as a city and London's creatives, and it was just nice, the vibe. Everyone was just there talking to each other, catching up, buying things. It was just like a really like coming together of London's creative community, and it's very rare you sort of have those moments.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I think as well for me, it's almost like, especially when you get into sort of fashion, like a luxury fashion, it's almost like there's a very specific way that things are done, where they seem very polished and very almost clinical. And Martine is just never really that. Like, you still get that fine finish and that feeling like it's a really well thought out space. It's produced well, everything down to a T, but it also allows for a real freedom. In this market, you had books, magazines, badges, T-shirts. You also had someone like Dwara, who is creating things that are new and fresh as well. But it's almost like, it's like going into a literal market and finding all the different things, and then also getting yourself a Paloma or a rum and ginger beer, And I think then you've got the whole space. It's not too overdone. I think it makes it feel really real. And then you couple that with the people that are in there and numerous children running around. And I should have brought my nephew. And I just think that just makes everything feel like this is how we should engage and enjoy clothes and fashion. It is about community. It's also about initiative and style and creativity and like craftship, but it's also just really fun and exciting. So
I do think that the way, even like so many of her shows that I've been to, just hearing the stories of how she's shown them at schools and things like that, completely like shapes how you take in the clothes and the brand and doing something a different way to the fashion show. And I think in the absence of Fashion Week, this felt really powerful to kind of take control back a bit and say, even though Martine's always done that, to say like, actually, we're going to make a little retail space and then we're going to do a show. And I wonder what we think about kind of the future of the fashion show as we move forward, and especially in London, amend a bit and doing things differently. And
I think when I heard that she'd done it like this space, I don't know, I really miss Kensington Market and Hyper.
Oh, right. So I was mentioning that to
her. And I've been saying for a few years, like, why can't somebody just set that up again to support all the British emerging designers? Because you just literally put rails in, but that's where we all used to go and buy our stuff.
Yeah.
When we were into fact, we didn't go to posh shops and spend loads of money. We went to Hyper and Kensington Market, and when they all disappeared, I guess we had the rise of the high street then, like Topshop and stuff.
Yeah.
But then now it's all gone. I'm like, come on, guys, this is what you should be doing. That's exactly what we need to be doing. And then we'll get this big resurgence of creativity and excitement and affordability and inclusivity and like great clothes that are made in little small runs. And that's where we need to get back to. But the new guard have got to do it. They've got to. And I think that was great what she did. I was like, yeah, of course she's done that. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think, just using the words out of my mouth, actually, Kensington Market and Hyper. No, because I'm a Shepherd's Bush boy, growing up, next to Kensington. And that's actually a massive sort of part of my story, right? Shopping at Kensington Market. I was there at the end, and then Hyper, right? But then I've lived what you just suggested there. I've been living that for the last, 20 years, right? Because I had a stall at Spitalfields Market for 18 years. And what actually was happening, the reason I dropped out of fashion, because I used to wholesale to fancy stores, before I used to do the proper system, right? After graduating at St. Martin's. But then I did a market, and then the real fashion got exposed, right, for me, and I lost creativity is creativity, but there was a lot of thievery, right? Because basically, we as stallholders I was at Greenwich and Spitalfields for most of the time, and then some of my colleagues at Portobello, we would get preyed on by the big houses, right? And they would come and look at our inspire, and then they would literally say to you, "We are shopping for inspiration," right? Now the thing is, what's going on here with Martine is, and some of the other stallholders would be doing vintage and so on. But it's an established part. I understand that people need to research shapes and so on and so forth. But what she's gone and done here is actually, it's so much, for me as an artist as well, it's so deep that she's placed this over a job centre, right? And then placed a market above a job centre. Because, I was tired of the system of trying to spend loads of money doing collections and then trying to recoup it back, right? Self-finance, right? But the market option is how you survive as a creative person. And then she's walking the line of being extremely creative and innovative, right? And also things you can wear. And so you have to do that at a market because, to be honest with you, the end consumer it tells you how successful you are, right? Yeah. So it's a genius thing that she's done, yeah. Plus, I'm looking at the socks. I love those football socks.
So I think as well, like a lot of the designers that were like selling in the market, they're really amazing designers, but maybe the catwalk's not the platform for them to show at, and maybe they don't have the money to be forking out on like 15k, 20k for a fashion show, or like they want to produce things in small quantities. A lot of them are sustainable designers. They're making things out of their bedrooms as a means of survival. So having a space to sell your stuff, there's not that, like there's fantastic twirls that Nazir does, but there's not many other places where they can actually go and sell what they're making.
Yeah.
It feels like there's kind of this move back to the collective away from this individualism happening where it's like me out on my own, all against each other, and people are like coming back together again.
You've got to, it's hard at the minute.
But I think, these are cycles because you're going to eat yourself alive, if you keep doing the same thing. I mean, the big brands, obviously, her association with Balenciaga and so on. And now you're seeing that actually obviously for a long time you really needed to be connected to the street and what's actually happening. So that's where the business is right now. And yeah, going back to that job centre and market, as you just said, I mean, obviously it is a survival thing. Some people really do look to survive in that. But having said that, also, it's also one of the main thing I actually like about her is the individuality and the individualism in the work, right? So people just trying to express themselves. And with, say, a low budget, so if you've got to go to a job centre, then perhaps you're out of work, and you know, back in the 80s and so on.
The job centre doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, oh yeah.
That's the irony of it, isn't it?
Yeah. There's no places. Yeah. So maybe now, the job centre has become a market now. Yeah, it's been you know, it's like a pop-up shop now, which probably, unfortunately, you know, a lot of Oxford Street looks like that now. You know.
Yeah, I think as well, when you think about where Martine is as, I guess, one of the few British designers, Black British designers, who's actually almost like that's a global phenomenon, right? Worn by all of the greats, heralded by so many more. And I think having this space where it's like now she has this opportunity, which she's done always anyway, to support, uplift and create opportunities for other British designers. And it's not just about clothes as we saw from the actual market, but I think she seems to be stepping into this new phase where it's like, actually, maybe I can do more for British people for this locations. And I didn't know about this High Street Kensington thing. I'm from East London as a ride or die. So for me, I'm like, there's still loads of markets in East London, and sometimes there's a way, I don't know how they're still surviving and thriving. It's crazy how much it costs. Yeah. But I think there's certain places that are still known as like, this is where you go to buy this and that, like Camden Market, like...
So they've changed over the years, obviously. I mean,
so much more food now than anything else.
Too much food.
Fancy burgers and things.
Yeah, literally.
A lot of those markets in East London, like Spitalfields and everything, they've changed over the years. That everything got so homogenised, got fancy. So it did push out. You used to be able to go to Spitalfield Market, pay £5 at 7 a.m.
Or like Roman Road.
Roman
Road is
that all kind of disappeared. So for a lot of creative people, not just fashion, it was really hard for them to just be able to show their stuff somewhere and sell things. But it's good to go back to that. Can we talk about her silhouette? She's gone very kind of clingy and sexy.
It's gone much... I mean, it's interesting thinking about that Balenciaga period, like big Martine shoulders, the big oversized silhouette, and I really noticed with this, it went much tighter, even in the tailoring and the trousers, the like sweaty kind of leather sheeny trousers that we liked. Yeah, so this is that this was, I think, one of the first Balenciaga shows that she consulted on. You think about that big tailoring, but
it's mad looking back at this now because it's really just informed menswear for like the past 5-6 years.
I was doing a little recap through some of the Balenciaga collections earlier and just that period of menswear.
Yeah.
And it's really like perspective sometimes, you know, when you can look at it as a bigger picture, it's just...
Yeah.
Just Martine's like all over it.
Yeah. Which is interesting now, where she's sort of pulling it back and it's gone the complete opposite way, where everything feels slightly awkward, slightly like clinging onto the body.
She's always done that kind of slightly twisted thing, but it feels like really leaning into that. I liked in the press note, she said she made a reference to electrician's trousers.
Yeah.
So I really like that idea again of people and like who are your local heroes and stuff. I really like that.
I think on the women's wear, there was definitely more twists going on, the twisted kind of mini skirts and the twisted top. Yeah, I mean, they're so much fun, aren't they? And that the lingerie with the sports top that's all a bit twisted. It's like, it's great.
I mean, you kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but if you were still kind of buying, I feel like this is a very, like, you can commercialise a lot of this very easily, but it doesn't feel like it's lost that Martine edge to it, which is really hard to do.
She was always really good at that. There was always like badges and pins and lots of good fun stuff to buy, and her price point was really good as well. The little if I was buying, there'd be a lot of lacy shorts, twisted mini skirts and football tops, keep everyone happy. Maybe some thigh-high socks.
Yeah. I like how she's doing going to silhouettes, like some of those jackets where they're literally like the same sort of style that she would have started with those boxy styles and reference to Balenciaga, but it looks like she's pinned them, but left the shoulders, right? Because she still loves that, but it almost feels like she's trying to say, well, if you're trying to pigeonhole me and tell me what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you. I'm going to keep surprising you. But then in doing that, I'm a massive Grace Jones fan, so she's then doing the whole 80s, Montana type shoulders and referencing that with a very modern twist. I like her accessories, the belts as well.
Yeah, what did the bags look like? Are they T-shirt bags?
Yeah, she said it was like a reference from one of her old lookbooks from like...
Spring/Summer 13.
Yeah, the boys were holding the T-shirts down by their side.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that's another thing I love about Martine, how the way she sort of revisits old collections, and she sort of, it's very unlike how other designers do it. Like she'll have like whole lookbook photos, and then she'll put them on T-shirts like 5 years down the line, and now that the models look like a boy band, they're like their own version of a boy band. Like she cleverly is sort of like signposting these different eras and moments that she's had in the past, and sort of regurgitating them in like new and exciting ways.
It's a great archive, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I can see even in the sort of like football boots inspired, football boot stroke cycling inspired shoes, which look really cool, with the high socks, sort of football socks. And then I can notice that it says like 2007, that's when she started, huh? So the more you keep looking at this collection, is the more you see, I suppose, the continuity and her telling her own story.
There are like little Easter eggs and stuff, where if you wear the brand or follow it, but it doesn't exclude you if you haven't. You get pulled in by the whole thing and by the whole feeling of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's also, as well, it's like if you've known this brand for a long time, then you kind of you're always like re-excited. You're sort of like you're still rediscovering, but also come from a place of knowledge of like, I know what that reference is. But like you're saying with the T-shirts and the archival things coming back, if I come into it for the first time, I'm just like, oh, that's really cool, but I have no real sense of where it came from. Like when I was looking at the silk bags, the T-shirt bags, I never thought about the collection from before. I just thought, oh, that's a really cool way to have a bag that feels almost like just regular and normal. But it's like if you were carrying a T-shirt, like what if it was a bag and has like this gold strap? Because now it's like a cool thing. So it's like you take the everyday and you make it into a fashionable moment.
Yeah, it's like everything's almost a little bit familiar. Because it is taken from this everyday, but it's not quite right, and it's not quite what you think it is. Which is fun to look at and watch.
That's the fresh eye, though, isn't it? It's so nice to see new things that you haven't. It's so hard nowadays, see things that you just haven't seen before.
And also like the styling of it. Like she's worked with Tamara Rothstein forever. I remember we shot something from a few collections ago, and it arrived, and it took me about half an hour to actually work out how it had been on the runway, which was really fun because it's like, oh, it's actually a completely different thing to what you saw on the look. And I like that play and how they put things together.
She's a great stylist. And the hairstylist is something as well.
Gary Gill, really good.
The hair was incredible.
So good.
I thought that was like, that for me was like, these, like this hair, the blowout, frayed. I can't even say where that area comes from, but I love that it's, boys, girls, like everyone is wearing this hair, and then the curled. So it looks like a very, I would say, nostalgic hairstyle for me. I used to go to this salon called No Fees in the depths of East London, Canning Town, my auntie, and they have these, the iron steam, like the iron hot combs, and they used to use it to do the curling. And it would always have this very specific print, which is like almost like the burning of the spray or whatever they put it against the hair and the relaxed hair, which is awful for your hair. But the style that came out was like all the rave. And to see that style on boys and girls and sort of Asian and white people, I think that is like really, really insanely cool because it looks really just fab. It's almost like, again, just changing everything that you expect into something really.
She does blend
fresh.
cultures really well, doesn't
Blends
she?
it really well, yeah, and it doesn't feel, it doesn't feel weird. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is shocking. You don't sort of look like, oh, is that all right? It's very much like, I love that she did that. So I really enjoyed that.
She herself is obviously a blend of the two cultures, right? I'm imagining like Caribbean culture and white European culture, right? But these are like almost mixed race people in the same family, right? And you know, so you've got black guys with blonde hair, you've got white guys with curly, is it Afro hair which has been straightened, and I suppose it just reminds me of the 80s when there was a lot of people trying to be that type of character, that with that type of hair. If you didn't have that type of hair, you just weren't cool, I thought it was New Romantics, but that hair looks even way wilder than that. Right? So yeah. But one thing, because every time I look at it, I keep thinking, oh, I missed that. There is a yellow top on women's wear, and I thought she was because I've come late to Martine, right? So I was told menswear and so on, but then she's really good with women here. And then there's that sort of lime green, yellowish top, and I thought, oh wow, as an artist, I'm thinking, okay, so there's a few zips underneath the boob, right, and so on, right? So and it is androgynous. So if you're a man and you put that on, then you can insert boobs in there. But if you're a woman there, I'm wondering if that's a conversation about breast implants and enlargements, how cutting under the breast and placing bits in, especially with the zips and so on. That's me probably taking it a bit too far, but it really does make you think because those don't look like very comfortable places to put your mobile phone. Yeah.
But it probably is pockets.
There we go.
Martine probably is.
Well, I mean, it's always, I do think that she likes to be a bit provocative, and also we haven't really talked about sexiness that much. Like there is always a kinkiness to what she does. I think I like that peeking through in this collection.
Like the belts of the loop, it reminds me of a few years ago she did these shirts and she called them like the cock ring shirts because it was like just like a silky shirt with the like a ring just hanging off at the bottom, and I really wanted one back at the time. I've never been able to find one, but then as soon as I saw them I was like, okay, the ring is very purposely placed. But then I think it goes back to sort of like, you shouldn't find it sexy BDU. It's like these guys and these trainers that have been like elongated so they look like witch shoes and
like comical or whatever.
Yeah, and like the like drain pipe tracksuit bottoms, like they're so tight, they look like they've been like melted onto the skin. Like traditionally, would you, if you had these garments on paper, would you find them sexy? Probably not, but the way it's put together and it's presented, you're like, oh yeah, it's really kinky, it's a bit sleazy, and I think that's what I sort of really like about her work, how that's sort of maintained like throughout the years as well.
It also kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you see like, if within like, I guess, Eastern European community, like the Polish, and there's a way that they wear tracksuits, a very specific style, and it's like those tracksuits tend to be very fitted, and then you have like a big like TN or some sort of trainer, and I feel like for me it kind of reminded me of, again, this style that exists in London and various cultures, but just made for Martine. And when you pair that with these shocks, you're just like, oh, like this does look a bit
That's
weird.
what I think. I see so many different cultures and like, what nationality is it? Are they black, white, Asian, Polish, a woman, a guy? That's what I find. I find that really provocative and really interesting, especially when the whole world is going insane and everybody's got to be certain religions and races and cultures. And here we're like, no, we don't. We're all just going to be a big, nice, blended pot. It's great.
A nice big blended pot, but almost everybody is for hire. There's a lot of hiring written in graphics on the bag. So hiring for what is quite it's quite provocative. Is it for I mean, if it's that Eastern European thing, I think one of the designs I remember is Gosha Rybczynski. Yeah, that kind of he does that kind of look. But then, is it for labour? Is it for or is it subversive and sex? Really, I think that there's definitely those imagery.
And they've all got the belts on. Actually, the belt features quite a lot. Isn't it?
Yeah, the belt. I work with leather, so I love those belts actually. Yeah, because I think sometimes if you're working with leather, I mean, I think it's got to have some sort of edge to it, leather. She's certainly achieved that. Yeah.
The show was actually no phones allowed, so we were allowed to take videos at the end, but it's a shame we can't watch any videos of the models in the show because it was kind of, they walked one by one and they just had such attitude and you could tell they had such confidence with each look, and they each took on this kind of character and did like a little pose, which was kind of a bit play on like the old couture style of each model, but it was done with like putting a foot out kind of a bit too far and posing and like, I don't know, what did we think of that? And I mean, Kay, I'd love to know what you thought of music as well, because the soundtracks always are so good.
The music, I mean, the first thing I did was look at who did the sound. I think I really enjoyed, so where I was sat, they sort of would stop and turn very close in front, but there was like a little gap between the seats. And so some of them, when they'd come along, they'd literally go in that gap.
Yeah, you were quite lucky. I could see where you were sat.
In that gap. And it's almost just like, it feels like it's almost too tight for them to move with such boldness in that space, but it worked beautifully. And I really enjoyed seeing some of the cast, the models after, when they're now wearing their like usual clothes. And I always find that really interesting when you kind of then really see the transformation that happens when someone is as a model, wearing wigs and all that bit. But no, I think that was really incredible. Definitely gave it more flavour and just makes it really interesting, especially when you're not supposed to have no phones, now you're really watching it. In terms of the music, I think, again, I always find with, in fashion shows and the score, and particularly with Martine, it's always this mix of 80s and like more new gen and a little bit of like uns as we call it, but very heavy hitting, very, I guess, engaging but not overpowering. But it just felt like with the strut of the models and the music, you could really see that this is just an incredible pairing. So yeah, I thought it was really great for me.
I love that as well. Obviously, the models that were posing, but then there was a lot of like, especially the boys, they were just like pacing it through. And again, I think that just makes it feel like you are on the streets again, and these are real people. And I sort of like that mix. Like, it's not.
They were all street cast.
Yeah, and it's not just like very curated in the sense where every model's coming out like and there's equal space between them. Like, some of them are racing through, some of them are taking their time, some of them really get in the face of the audience. So it just feels like, you have this really eclectic mix of personalities, which is sort of reflected in the clothes as well.
I think it leans into that idea of like using fashion to kind of, everything we do when you get dressed is you're putting on a certain character and you're pretending. And I like that she leans into that artificiality of it and just plays those characters. I mean, it's worth kind of talking briefly about, I think this was quite moving to do such a London-centric show, considering her kind of rise, like Kendrick Lamar, their kind of ongoing collaboration. This show was another collaboration with Nike for their shocks. It just feels like Martine is going kind of up and up and up. Obviously, there were rumours that she was going to be at Louis Vuitton. I think some of us were hopeful maybe she'd get the Balenciaga appointment. But what do we kind of hope for Martine? Do we want the kind of brand to kind of maybe become her kind of house? Or
it's strange, isn't it? Because there's part, I sometimes wonder if she would really want one of those big roles, and then I'm like, do we really want to lose her to one of those big roles? It's kind of like, but you wanted to get the recognition that she should get. It's hard, isn't it? But I mean, thank God we have her here, championing what's going on here, and she's such a talent. She does deserve a lot. It's kind of great that they keep not picking up on her as well, because you want her to be that gritty, and still being here. And I think she's always going to be that anyway. She's just, that's her intrinsically. So, yeah.
I like that she came back to London after like doing a moment in Milan and Paris, and it's actually is where, I mean, it's not really where it's at the moment, but you know, she's like,
She
it's
kind
still
of
where it's
makes
at.
it where
She
it's
makes it where it's at,
And
right?
you know what? When London's a bit down and out, it does really kind of get gritty and get creative and come back up. And I felt like this was a bit of a, come on, guys, you know, this is what we've got. We've all got to get together and do that. It felt a little bit like that to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think London is such a powerhouse of talent that, and you know, you say what to wish for her. I mean, she is collaborating here with Nike. I mean, let's not pretend that's a big beast, right?
Yeah.
And also, you know, there's been a lot of movement with creative directors this year. So it's the elephant in the room. You know, fashion's trying to work out where it's going to go, right? And her approach was just a bit quirky, you know, I think is keeping a close eye on it. But she seems to have a very pragmatic. A lot of fashion designers will have their own collections. There are some who've probably been given like big creative director roles now who don't necessarily even sell their collections really well. But this looks like a collection that will really sell well, if that's a barometer that we want to judge a designer on. And then, you know, she should really get, you know, be placed at the helm of one of those big brands as an actual designer, you know, who's playing with culture. And subculture, you know, so that looks like something for me which would naturally follow. I mean, you know, I'm trying to be an independent designer and just do my thing, and she's got that vibe, but she's like the top of the tree with the collaborations, because it almost seems like you can't do that without these collaborations with these people. Some of us are still doing it without the collaborations, and so I think it's already happening for her. She's one of the biggest names there. But it looks kind of very touchy-feely and very, not even touchy-feely, but very accessible, but it's very, very good what she's doing.
Because it's so hard now to have your own name and your own brand.
Yeah.
And Martine is one of the few ones to do it and do it really distinctly and really well. And I don't know, I personally feel very fatigued by just the cycle of different designers going to different luxury brands. And I think the consumer is too, you know, that market has just gone like that over the last few years. So is it also that it's time for some new namesake, you know, designers to be the Balenciaga of 30 years' time?
I always wanted it, and I was like, I really wanted to get that creative director job. And obviously there's been lots of rumours and it's not happened yet, but I think sort of what she's built and like the brand she's built and sort of, as you said, the global appeal it's got, like, I just don't know if she necessarily needs it, and I don't know if she wants it.
I don't really want to know if I want it.
And I'm also, she's a sort of beacon of hope for, if I was a London designer coming up, and it's like, you're looking up to Martine, and it's like, okay, here's someone doing really well, and they're smashing it, and it's being worn by superstars, but she's so devoted to the city still, and she can go and do a show in Paris, do in Milan, but she'll always come back. And I think sort of, if I was coming up at a time as it is now, it's super difficult to have your name on the door, as you said, with a brand. I'd be like, okay, this is someone's smashing it. I want to be like that as well.
It's crazy how we've gone from, like when Gautier and all those people were doing, you know, which actually she's got a bit of a feel of that, right? That sort of punky era, you know, Westwood and so on. We wasn't thinking, I hope Westwood gets a job at Dior.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know,
so
if me, Kervin Marc, I'm trying to create my own brand, you know, and I'm doing it. And she's done that herself, so that's why we're here talking about her, and we're really interested in her. It's, you know, this doesn't feel like I'm trying to do a stepping stone to go to a big brand. This is what London was about, and I salute it, you know, so we're behind her in whatever she does. But if she does get an even bigger job, I mean, you know, because it was an exciting job at Balenciaga, and so on. But if she does get that, I'm not going to hate on her for taking that, because obviously you've also got to make a living as a designer, right? But it looks like she's got the makings of a very, very successful brand.
Yeah, I think she's in a position to do that. Like, she's the guest creative director for Clarks. She's got the Nike collaboration, Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
There's lots of other projects she's kind of had bubbling along over recent years. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's getting to that place where actually this could be.
What I like about her collaborations as well is that they're really her point of view. They haven't been kind of diluted by the brand that she's worked with either, which I think is really difficult to get right.
I didn't even notice that you're wearing the shot.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
These don't come off my feet.
Do a little more.
These don't come off my feet, honestly.
Why do you like them? What like drew you to them?
Honestly, it just feels like, for one, I really like that it's a mule and that you can just slip your foot in it and just get moving. The unusualness of this shoe, but the fabness of this shoe means that no matter who you are, really cool people to like young kids from school being like, I love your shoes. Yeah. And I'm just like, what are they? And I was like, oh, just a very special collaboration between this and this. And it's just like, what? And it's almost like the fascination of this shoe and the different colours that is coming, the more colours that's coming. But I think also it just works with so many things, like in terms of as a style, as an aesthetic. I think I had to, if you're not used to wearing like heels, even if it's a little heel, you have to adjust your walking. So
it changes the trainer into a heel, right?
But yeah, I think I do really enjoy the freshness with the shoes that Martine creates. Like with anything, there will be, with any design, some things you don't really like, it doesn't really speak to you. But I think for me, majoritively, I do enjoy the style because for me it feels very London. This is like an amalgamation of a football industry, or a football sort of take on a shoe that's very popular and was very popular when I was a kid. Like wearing Shox was like the thing. Whether you could afford it or not, you'd try your best. You'd buy fake ones if you had to. So I think for me as someone who is, you know, a Londoner, and even just as a British person, it just feels really nostalgic, but also very innovative. So that's probably why I love the shoes so much.
Thank you.
But yeah, I was just gonna say, just on Martine, I think this idea of growth being to be like, you know, the creative director of another house, to sort of come out of the UK, come out of like Britain as a thing, I think is literally born out of the fact that we are so siloed here sometimes, that there is no growth beyond where you are, that you have to go to somewhere else in order for that to be okay. Now you get the real money, you get the real esteem, and da-da-da-da. But it's like Martine Rose could become what Burberry became, what I guess Jonathan Anderson is to a certain degree, what so many other brands out of the UK and out of Britain have become. If you think about Mulberry, if we like Mulberry, I'm like, there's so many heritage British brands that this could, which already is, but it could transform into that. And so if Martine Rose can exist to where I'm in my 80s, I would love that, you know, like as a brand, but also her as a person in whatever form. And I just feel like that's kind of, for me, my desire is that this brand continues to exist and push boundaries and showcase the diversity that exists in not just this country, but everywhere, actually. And it just grows and grows and, you know.
It's one of the brands you actually see people wearing on the street, different ages, different types of people. Like, it's not like exists in this bubble where fashion people love it and no one else likes it. Like, it's in the population. Like, people are wearing these clothes, and it's not just London either. Like, across the country, people are sort of, whether you got into it because the Supreme collab, or whether you've been following it from the start, or whether you saw it in Kendrick Lamar, or whether you just have been a fan from that, like the outset. Like people are wearing and buying these clothes and the shoes, and I just think that's why I just don't know if necessarily she needs that big money job somewhere else. She's already sort of making an impact on a
it doesn't
large scale.
exist in a kind of vacuum, does it? And it does feel like she's built up this constellation of things around the brand, and whether she does one season in Milan and comes back and does a Clarks thing and Nike, it kind of all feels like it's really all coming together to be able to have a brand which can support itself, which is really hopeful and exciting, I think, for London. Well, I think that's a good place to stop on. I could probably sit and chat to you guys about Martine forever. But thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
for having
much.
us. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.